and the key is guys to be, to educate, and they go to make that decision. I think everybody's like, oh goodness, this guy came back or that guy came back. I really more guys should come back if they educate themselves properly and make proper decisions on what they're doing and what the best is, how to put themselves in the best position for their future. So I think he made with all the information I had, he made a smart decision. Now it's not for me to decide. It's obviously a very personal decision for guys to decide of what they want to do for them and their family. But I thought it was a really, really smart on his part.
Thank you.
Hey, Dan. I wanted to ask you about Reese and DeLance coming back and just kind of what went into those decisions and how much maybe they felt the way this offense could be geared and more towards some run-oriented attack, how that might be more toward their strengths and what they can do with run blocking.
Well, I think, I don't know that part of it is as much as looking at where you're at. You gather all your information. We spend a lot of time trying to help get guys proper information. This is where you are. This is where people view you at. These are where what people appear to be your strengths, what appear to be your weaknesses, areas of improvement that you need to improve on. And then because you get one opportunity at doing that at the next level. So I think guys spend a lot of time. The guys that spend their time, they research it, they look at where they're at, they have a good understanding. They're, especially guys that shows the maturity they have of being able to take in all that information and then apply it to what is going to be best for them in their future.
How much does their return just help bolster your offensive line and that unit be able to improve this year?
Well, it's huge. You look at it was an area we suffered some injuries last year, and that hurt some of the depth, and you end up mixing up the rotation. Obviously, when you have depth, it gives you an opportunity to maybe absorb if there's an injury or the stuff that goes on during the season. It is a long year and how to deal with those things. So the added depth certainly helps a lot.
And then one more, I just wanted to have you clarify. I'm not sure if you saw the Cam Newton video where he was recalling the Percy Harvin play.
Yeah.
Looks like he got a little bit of a mix-up there with his storytelling. Which touchdown is he referring to on that 80-yarder that you drew up on the sideline?
In watching it, I don't know. Probably, some of the stories come because I'm sure it happened more than once. During the time out there, but it is, I think a lot of that stuff comes and one of the neat things for the quarterbacks, I guess, but thankfully they don't broadcast that stuff. But, when you're a guy like Cam and you're on the headsets, and the backup quarterbacks that are on the headsets, guys that are signaling or listening, but, they're involved in the game plan in case their number calls with the adjustments that we make. They get to hear a lot of fun, interesting things right there. So I did know. I love the shout out. Obviously, I know I love Cam, and what an amazing player he is. But I think he, when you look at it and you get into the story, you know the story, you know how it goes. Now, the exact specifics of it was this play on this game is different. It tweaks and it can be, hey, we drew it up. In this game, we drew up this play to do it. In this game, we said, hey, we need to get him the ball right now. Let's get to this call that should get him the ball. But I think it was pretty cool.
Man, the 80-yarder against South Carolina was coming out of the half, so that would make sense.
Yeah, that could have been. See, I wouldn't even remember. I can remember. I was thinking of the one. When I read it, I'm like, okay, or I saw it, I'm like, okay, maybe it's a South Carolina counterplay. There was one against Vanderbilt that was similar. Yeah. There was the LSU where he kind of a crossing route across the middle, and we hit him one-on-one on a crossing route for a long touchdown. But I wouldn't have known that was coming out of the half. So you know some of the plays in the back of your head, but the exact time they happened and how they all shook out, to the exact detail. Some of those get a little bit crossed.
Well, like you said, he had a lot of touchdowns, so it's easy to confuse them.
Yeah, and he's a good guy to put the ball in his hands.
Thanks, Dan.
I'm going to jump in here real quick, and I hope Skip doesn't yell at me with a follow-up to that. Do you do that a lot, just kind of draw them up in the dirt, or does it take, trust in a certain player and, years of development with a certain player to think
Yeah, when people get, and draw it up in the dirt's probably a little different when you're on, like, in that's how people view it. And even the best way to explain it to people, like, oh, we just threw it up in the dirt. Like if you look at the South Carolina play, I mean, we just ran a counter off of a fake jet sweep action. So, it's not like that was not a play that everybody in the offense hasn't run. Now, maybe we didn't do it in that particular way or didn't have that in the game plan that specific week. But it's not always like, hey, 11 guys have no idea. Here's a brand new play that 11 guys, none of them have ever done before. It's a play that you would have. And you're just going to try to run it a different way or a way that you don't have it in the game plan or a way to get somebody the ball and say, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to run this play, but we're going to do it out of this formation. You're going to come in motion, and this is how it's going to play out for us to run that play that we have in the offense already.
Thank you.
Edgar, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, Dan.
What's going on, Edgar?
Not much. Speaking of transcendent players, Kyle Pitts, we spoke to Tim last week, Coach Brewster. He said people, the theme is, it's like be like Mike, it's now be like Kyle in that tight ends room. What kind of a standard did he set? What have you talked to about that group, about trying to live up to that standard or not trying to live up to what he did?
Well, I mean, one of the things, we're very different players at that spot, you know what I mean? So to sit there and say, I think, I don't know, I saw articles that he's the highest ranked tight end prospect in the history of the NFL draft. So to sit there and say, okay, now you go do that. There's a lot of football been played throughout the years. And if he's considered the highest guy ever, that's pretty high praise. A lot of pressure for him moving forward too, but I know he'll embrace that. We talked to those guys about, hey, you don't have to do what Kyle Pitts did. Yeah, what you have to do, though, what he did was maximize, he worked his tail off, put a lot of extra time, continued to grow, continued to develop, and, we highlighted his strengths. I talked to those guys that we're going to highlight the strengths of the guys that are in the room. And I don't expect you to live up to what Kyle Pitts did, but I do expect you to live up to be the best that you can be. Okay. And I expect you to live up to your strengths and utilize your strengths at the highest of levels. And there'll be some things those guys do better than Kyle. There's some things that they're going to be different than him. And the key is not to compare or to try to match the two. The key is to live up and put our guys in a position to what they do well and then expect them to live up to what they do well and maximize their talent.
So, I just had a couple of weeks of NASCAR coverage. Joe Gibbs had a winner. And he used to say back in the day, the second most important guy on a football team is the backup quarterback. You found that out a couple years ago. How's that shaking out right now? I mean, Emory, how are the guys behind him looking, and how much confidence do you think you're going to have in them by the beginning of next season?
Oh, we'll have confidence in them. Part of that is making sure you understand the strengths and the weaknesses. I think one thing, that we missed out on last year is identifying the strengths and weaknesses of our players. We're throwing a lot at them with installation. Okay, and now I'm going to bet at the end of spring, there's going to be a bunch of stuff we did this spring that we're not going to use or we're going to throw out and just say, hey, that really doesn't fit the profile of this team. But, we throw a lot at the guys to see what they do well, what they can handle, what fits us. And, we didn't get to do that last year, when you find out strengths and weaknesses of players. And so, we're really spending a lot of time on that. I have a lot of confidence in those guys. They're very hard workers. You look at, obviously Emory and Anthony coming in and those guys with experience, it was great at different times. I know last year, even though we played an all SEC schedule, still throwing Anthony out there for plays. So he's played in SEC games, out on the field. Obviously through, Emory's gotten a lot of experience, over the last couple of years. So, they've been on the field, they have that experience, and now just throwing a lot of the offensive at them and see where they're most comfortable. What, when it's just all on them, what are they doing at a high level? What do we want to concentrate? How does it fit the personnel around them? To those guys, to where we seem to click. And we'll kind of hone it in around that. And then it's great having the two freshman quarterbacks here because those guys, they're getting valuable reps right now. in case, I mean, you don't want to get to the backup quarterback sometimes, but, that can make for a tougher season. But those guys are getting that experience to learn the system.
I mean, what's your feeling about that? The importance of the backup? And
well, it's critical. It depends a lot on teams. We're a very quarterback-based offense. We put a lot on our quarterbacks. Here, there's some that, really, they don't put as much on the quarterback, So it's not as critical maybe for some places as others, or some systems as others. Ours it is, because we put an awful lot on the quarterback, and so you got to be ready. You're one play away from that guy being the starter, and being the starter at Florida is a great responsibility. And within our system, it's a great responsibility for our success. So I think you always know, I always want to have multiple guys ready. We'll play multiple guys early in the season, whoever the starter is, just so that guys are ready to play like we always do.
Thank you, Dan.
Jack Huber.
What has stood out about the team's effort and attitude through five practices so far?
Well, I think it's been great. I like it. We have we do have a lot of young guys. We have some good veteran leadership. Guys have been in the program, understand what we expect, but there are a lot of young guys and a lot of guys that haven't been in that position before out there on the field. And but I the energy they come with every day, the excitement, the desire to learn, and how to learn and how to improve. I think our guys are very conscientious about that, of understanding, hey, this is how I get better. Hey, even when I'm not in, this is how I'm watching reps. This is how I'm studying the game. This is how I'm preparing and improving. Guys are learning how to do that. And and then you combine that. I think there is a really positive, really good energy within the team for the guys, of competing against each other, but also and pushing each other to get better, and balancing in that with making sure we're doing the things we need to do to improve. Because some of those can get crossed over a lot. Where I'm just competing and I'm almost out of control and I'm not getting myself better. Okay. It's learning all of that. And hey, you know what? Hey, I'm giving the scout team look on this, but I have to give a good look to make that guy get better. And then I need someone to give me a good look for me to get a quality rep. It's educating yourself on how to do things the right way.
Then who are some of the young guys that have jumped out to you?
I don't know. I mean, everybody, I think. I mean, I'm really happy with how those guys have come along. So, I don't have any negatives on anybody. They're all pretty positive.
Oldie.
Yeah, Dan, you talked kind of generally about the quarterbacks. I wondered more specifically, what have you seen out of Emory so far that you're really pleased with? And then what are you working to improve with him?
Well, everything. He's got a good understanding of the offense. Obviously, we're adding some different things that we didn't have in last year, and throwing some of those new things out there to see what kind of sticks and fits with our guys, and we're tweaking it. With tweaking some of the things, made some changes. We'll make some changes today, and said, hey, we're going to change these things in this direction. But, I think his maturity and understanding what we expect out there on the field, his grasp of the offense, I think is really good. And then, his ability to, if we do kind of make changes on the run, even on stuff, say we wanted to look at things this way, and we're going to try to change them a little bit. His ability to adjust to that, I think, is really good.
Bob.
Hey, Coach, you're not going to match what Kadarius Toney did, but is there somebody that you would consider the closest to him on offense right now?
Not really. I don't do that. I don't compare guys or try to do that with other guys. We're going to use the guys and do what they do well, like we did. We did things with Kadarius Toney that I wouldn't compare him to the Freddie Swain and Josh Hammond really, and some of those wideouts the year before. We kind of utilized the strengths of those guys, and they all went on, and they're having a lot of success now in the NFL. And then we utilized the strength of Kadarius, very different player. We utilized his strength last year, and I think he'll have a very successful career in the NFL. And then our new guys, our young guys now, we're going to utilize their strengths and looking at them, I expect those guys to have some success in the NFL as well. I know how Billy Gonzalez does such a great job developing those guys to not just be great while they're here and put them in position to be successful in what we do, but also develop them to have the opportunity to play in the National Football League one day.
Well, then a couple of receivers. Can you talk about Jaquavian Frazier's and Jamarcus Weston? How are they doing this spring?
Doing great. They got size. Got great size. Frazier's got great ball skills. Fabulous hands. Big physical guy. Can use his body. Really physical blocker. Unbelievable ball skills when the ball's in the air and has great length. Jamarcus is an explosive player, might be the fastest wide receiver, but also has size and power and great quickness. So both of those guys now, I know they've been working their tail off ready for this opportunity to kind of be into that starting or starring role, and they're doing a great job embracing it.
Thanks, Coach.
Buddy, go ahead.
Hey, Dan. Question about quarterbacks. You mentioned you put a lot of emphasis on them, as a lot of people do. You more than others. Talking to a peer of yours today, a guy who used to coach, about how it seems to him quarterback has become even more important now than it used to be. Like used to be, you had to have the quarterback, the wide receivers, running backs, etc. And I understand that's the team concept. He portends that right next to the coach, the quarterback now has become the second most important person on the team. And you agree with that, and if so, why? If not, why?
No, I think so. But it depends, again, on your system and what you do. I always thought that the easiest thing to do is put a lot on the quarterback. Those are guys that, you're sitting there and saying, hey, this guy's, generally puts in more time, puts in more film study, is around, comes in, a lot of the great quarterbacks I have, they'll sit in game plan meetings. So they really understand the why of what we're trying to accomplish. And then if you're going to put extra stuff on somebody, you put it on those guys to go succeed. So we've kind of been a very quarterback heavy offense, where we depend on those guys to carry us in a lot of ways. And I think people get caught up in that there's one way that the quarterbacks can do that, and they're certainly not, I'll just compare some of the ones here at Florida and what we asked Chris Leak to do, what we asked Tim Tebow to do, what we asked Kyle Trask to do, all very, very, very different, even though we put an awful lot on each one of those guys individually as quarterbacks. So to put, with that in there, it is, hey, we're going to put some responsibility on the quarterback in how they're handling the game, and we're going to put a lot more on them than everybody else, but there's not one specific way you do it. And that's just kind of how we've always been, and we've been pretty successful at the quarterback position throughout the years.
Asking these quarterbacks to do different things, we remember Leak and Tebow and how you alternated them, and of course you mentioned Trask. We're all just guessing here, but we're going to guess Emory might run a few more RPOs, or might run the ball more, carry the ball more. Will you be more run-oriented outfit? I mean, if you were just projecting out without knowing, how would you say that what would that morph into?
I'm not sure. I got to see. We've only had 5 practices with this team. So, it does depend on a surrounding cast too, to sit there. There's certainly something to the guys that surround him. Of what we're going to ask him to do. We're going to play to the strengths of the quarterback. We're also going to play to the strengths of all the players around him as well. And, so they're going to have to slightly adjust onto what everybody else around him does well. Obviously, if you see Emory, he's more, I expect you're going to see the opportunity for him to make more out-of-the-box plays maybe than Kyle did. Kyle I thought, was really athletic within the pocket, could extend in a real short area, extend plays. One thing Emory's going to bring to the table is ability to really extend plays. He has tremendous arm talent, a really strong arm, so his ability to extend plays, to potentially scramble, keep plays alive, and then the arm strength to make throws down the field that that'll change things up. So I think the improvisation at the quarterback position will be one thing that'll be very different.
Just one quick one. Is there any reason why we keep hearing these people suggest that Emery is not that good a passer. It looks to me like he's really good. It looks to me like he can make all the throws. If you compare it to his abilities as a passer in your offense, why would it be any worse, in my opinion?
Yeah, I haven't heard that, but I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean,
You feel confident in that?
I feel pretty, he's got a cannon for an arm. I mean, he's got a cannon for an arm, so I don't know who would say that, I guess. And maybe there's somebody out of practice, watching practice, that's more expertise at quarterback than me that's letting you know those things. But I'm pretty confident in what he can do.
Thank you.
All right, Ethan has one. Edgar has a follow-up, and we'll finish with Mark Long.
Hey, Coach. Now that you've had a couple of weeks with Jules Montanar and Wesley McGriff, what are your early impressions of them? They seem to be very loud and energetic from what we've gotten to see on Instagram.
Yeah, high energy coaches. I think they do a great job. I mean, obviously very experienced, know what they're doing. I think it's a unique deal because I think we are very, very young. There's a lot of young faces in the secondary. There's not one guy in the secondary that's had a spring practice before, 10 days ago? So 10 days ago was the first spring practice, with the exception, I think Trey Deans had some, maybe I think he graduated early, so his first year. So he's the only guy on the roster that's even had a spring practice. So they got a young group, but I think they bring a lot of energy and the experience. I think they're doing a really good job and getting those guys reps, getting them to buy in. And I'm pleased with the attitude I've seen from those guys in the secondary.
Edgar, with your follow-up?
Yeah, Dan, we're moving up on a year since this whole COVID mess really got going. You could probably talk for a half an hour about everything you learned through it all, but just what has been the sacrifice that you guys, the players, have made? I mean, I was just thinking of testing alone. I mean, having to do that 3 times a week, God knows what time you got to get up, getting that thing shoved up your nose. I mean, you guys had the outbreak. What has this been the sacrifice that has been made to play football and to continue to keep going?
Well, it's been massive. I think, that like, as you say, from testing to redoing how we do everything, to trying to make makeshift facilities, to makeshift meeting rooms, to keep everything open air, how we travel, how we meet, how we change, how we get dressed for practice. The mental and emotional wear of not knowing, or you go through a season. You're going to play. I don't know. You find out Friday afternoon if you're going to play a game. That's really hard to do. To prepare all week, and you still have no idea whether you're going to play. That's an emotional draining on itself. So, like you said, I could sit here for an hour and you could write a book on all the sacrifices that have been made by the players to get to do this. But, I will say this. That's what we love to do. That is what we love to do. So, to sit here and I don't, I'm not complaining or feeling sorry for us because we're getting to go do what we love to do, which is play football. Now, was it easy? No, it was extremely difficult. But is it worth all of those sacrifices you have to make and those challenges? Absolutely it is, because we're getting to do what we love to do, which is go play football.
What did Nick Savage do? The other day someone said 4.5 months you guys had no contact. This guy's sitting around with an empty weight room.
Well, they're trying to do virtual stuff, virtual meetings with guys. These are workouts you can do, trying to create guys, people a lot of time were, when it first started, you're stuck in your home, right? Everybody, we didn't know what to do. You sit in your house. Okay, well, hey guys, what can you do in your house to keep your body in some sort of good physical condition? And you have guys on our team that, they're used to go. They're not, kind of sit quietly in a room and work all day in a room. They're kind of more, physical doers. And so, just constantly trying to create different things to keep everybody in a positive direction mentally and physically.
Thank you, Dan.
All right, it's the boost. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, Dan. Sticking with the vaccine or the COVID stuff, you got any prognosis for a vaccine for yourself and for your team? Do you even ask about it yet?
No, I mean, I have, because I've had it, and I've asked if I should get the vaccine and which vaccine and that stuff. And they said, yeah, talking to some of the specialists, they said they were, it's very recommended that even though you've already had it, that you get the vaccine as well. I've not gotten the vaccine yet. I think there's probably, at this point, there's a lot of people out there that, in the list and order of things right now, I don't know that we're at the top of that list for at this time for our football team. So even, I would imagine even in the athletic department, I want to make it negative, but I mean, there's people in season and trying to go compete, and that would jump us on that list. So it's something that we've talked with our parent group and with the players on the team. And, when it gets to be a little bit more crunch time for us, we've been very fortunate with what's going on with we continue to test, and with our numbers and our ability to go through spring practice and our ability to go through an off season. Hopefully that continues, and then see what we're going to have to do to make sure we make next year happen and make next season happen. And hopefully, hopefully it's happening at an easier level than this past year was.
And then when you don't get a guy you want, I mean, I get that that's part of the job. You cast a wide net and hope for the best. But does it bother you? Like, you're a competitive guy. Does it bother you a lot when you don't get a guy, or you can't get a guy in, or whatever the circumstances?
Like just different recruiting stuff you're talking about?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. The whole deal. I think anytime when you look at that whole process, there's guys you want, and there's guys, the one for me I always go back to. I love doing things for kids. I'm competitive, and I think you're competitive and you want guys to come, but you want to make sure you get guys for all the right reasons in the end. And I always hope for kids that they make decisions for all the right reasons. I think that's one of the biggest things that are out there, that guys make all the decisions for the right reasons. And, I think when you see a kid, this is a great fit for somebody, and they end up at that school, you're really pleased, you're really happy for the kid. You know what I mean? Tim Tebow, and that was a wild recruiting deal. For everybody, but in the end, I think most people would say, hey, the best place that Tim Tebow could go was Florida. The best place, in looking back on, it probably was the best thing ever, that this was the right place for Tim Tebow. So I think that's the stuff that to me, that you get really, that I always think is, hey, it's awesome to see a young guy when it matches and it fits and they have a lot of success. I think that's fantastic.
Dan, you see an Alex Smith-Urban reunion coming?
Well, is that out there? I don't know.
Alex is being released.
Is he? I gotcha. That's too bad. You know what? I think Alex is an unbelievable role model for people. If you really dig in, if you get to know him, what a role model he is. From being a student athlete, the success he had from being a 1 or a 0 star, from whatever he is, to the number 1 pick in the draft, graduating college. I think it took him 2 years to graduate college, and then goes on and helps build their organizations up to championship levels, just unbelievable leader, unbelievable teammate. I bet you'd be hard pressed to find many guys that don't say he's one of the great teammates they've ever had on the field. One of the smartest people I've ever met, and unbelievable competitor. So I think that whoever gets him is going to get an unbelievable human being, and a guy that, obviously, one of the great comeback stories in the history of the NFL, and not just, it was amazing to me, not just the comeback to be able to play. There's one thing, I think, the initial challenge of comeback to ready to play, and then you add on to it, not come back ready to play, come back and get your team into the playoffs. That's something that's unreal. So whoever gets him is going to be pretty fortunate.
Were you the best man in his wedding?
No, I didn't. My son was born the week of his wedding, so he was in my wedding party, though.
Oh, okay.
So he was one of the groomsmen of my wedding. So back a long time ago, and
Thanks, man. Appreciate the time today.
Absolutely. Good to see y'all. Have a great day. Go Gators.
Thanks, Doug.